Yeah, thank you for the great introduction. I mean, with that, we all have it, right? Talking about bad DevOps, aren't we here to learn the good DevOps? Yeah, sure. But I've seen many organizations and teams that have struggles with getting into the DevOps thing. And I saw some patterns in it where I thought, why do they try this? This never worked, or this only works in a certain context that does not apply here. And I thought I create a presentation about doing the bad DevOps, right? How to do really bad DevOps and how to screw your DevOps transformation initiative, what have you. And I'm not the only one who sees DevOps initiatives failing. If you follow Gartner, they reported last year that they think about 75% of DevOps initiatives will fail or not meet the expectations. Funny enough, there was another post of Gartner all around that time where they said 90% of DevOps initiatives fail. Actually, it doesn't matter whether it's 75 or 90%. So vast majority of DevOps initiative, transformation, projects, what have you, seem to be doomed. And as I said, I thought it is time to think about what is it that makes them fail. And especially when you look at it, I have a tweet by Patrick Dubois, who said, sometimes I feel that it has all been said about DevOps, which is somehow right? I mean, DevOps is not canonically defined, so it improves and continues to evolve constantly. So it's never really everything said about it. But I think he's right in regards to, like, the baseline is already set and it should be understood, right? It's no longer rocket science or new things. If you look at the timeline, I mean, DevOps has been sparked with the DevOpsDays in Ghent 2009, which is now 11 years old, right? And also all these things that we tell in DevOps, like continuous delivery. Continuous delivery, the book Continuous Delivery by Humble and Farley was published 2010. And the first ideas of the method are around 2005, 2006. Also other patterns that live in the DevOps environment, like agile, right? Agile in software engineering is from the early 90s. And I just ticked here 2001 for the agile manifesto to have something where you can see even the agile manifesto is now almost 20 years old. Things like continuous integration, which you need for continuous delivery, right, is a thing that was coined in the early 90s, and the first time it was really described as a complete method and set of tools was in Kent Beck's book Extreme Programming, and that was published in 1997. So in an industry where we say everything is fast evolving and pacing forward, we are talking about a lot of things that are decades old. And I see a lot of these great DevOps days conferences that I attend, and I wonder myself, why is it not that we only see unicorns there in the meantime, right? You know, I mean, these unicorns who drink the rainbow water and tell the fairy tales, how shitty the world was back in the days where we didn't have DevOps. But actually, I see a lot of companies really have struggles with applying DevOps. And that's why I come up with like 5 tips of how to do the bad DevOps. And because, as I said, we have it basically all. We have the papers, we have the conference, we have the books, we have the companies that show us how to do it. So let's look into how maybe we shouldn't do the DevOps thing. One way of how you should not do the DevOps thing is by just blindly copying those unicorn companies, like the big ones in the industries, or even the smaller ones. Let's say, yeah, I've read and seen these great videos of the Spotify organizational model. Just use that and copy that one-to-one into my organization, and this will be perfect. And also from the architectural point of view, Netflix uses a lot of microservices. So why not do everything microservices now? Or infrastructure management. Let's do everything in containers and container orchestration tools like AWS and Google does it. So just copy that into our companies. In most cases, you will have hard times with that, because you copied things out of context, and you can't really copy things out of context if you not respect the employees that do it, the customers, the business case that they have, also the failings and experiences you can't copy. They might not even tell you what learnings they had along the way, right? So you always have to come up with your way of doing DevOps. So every time you go to a conference like this, attend speeches, always make yourself aware that simply blindly copying things one-to-one from other organizations, teams, or companies into your context might not work. You always need to learn and adopt. I know it's the hard part, but it's the thing that you cannot omit. You cannot say, I just copy it and it will work and it will have exactly the same benefits. In most cases, you will to tweak at least a little, maybe even some little bit more, but always try to find your way of doing DevOps and get inspired by all the talks that you've heard today, that you will keep hearing today, and see of what does that mean? How can I pick some things out of that I can use in my team, in my organization? The second tip on how to do the bad DevOps is, I think it's it's El Clasico of doing bad DevOps. It is when you look back into where DevOps sparked, right? It is we became aware that development and operations are two different professions. They are incentivized different. Development teams get incentivized by creating features. Operations teams are incentivized by keeping things stable. And there's a quite sure relation between new features or changes and stable system. Google reports that 60% of the outages that they have on their productive systems can be directly traced back to changes that they made in their productive environment. So you could say, if you want to get rid of 60% of outages, just don't change the system, never touch a running system, right? So the way of thinking of these two teams is different. The way they are incentivized is different. The way of working is different. Development teams, like whether they are waterfall or agile, they always like to work in planned steps. First we do this, and then we do that, and then we build the features and the software. In operations, you also have planned work, but in most cases, in vast majority of stuff, you have event-driven work. So if the database crashes down, it's not very advisable to say, okay, let's put that in a backlog item and plan it in one of the next sprints to recover the database. That's not the way how they work. No, they are event driven and they need to react fast. So different worlds, and basically all that we want in DevOps from the very origin of the idea is to bring those people closer together, to have a bit more of collaboration, empathy, trust, between the two of us. And still, we still want to have a profession called development who do development and not operations, and another profession called operations who do operations and not just do everything development does. It's just this tiny overlap that we want. And this is basically like what we were aiming for, right? And a lot of companies and organizations now come to the idea, okay, we need to do the DevOps, and I see I can hire DevOps engineers. This should be something we should do. Creating a team somewhere between development and operations that does the DevOps thing, right? And this is a bit odd. As you see, I've indicated here was the lightning symbols to indicate the friction between the surfaces of those. Here I have two lightning symbols, and where we came from, I had one lightning symbol. So basically, you are even creating more silos, the third silo, and causing more friction. And you might say even between development and operations, there's communication or collaboration, and that might create friction. So there might be a third lightning symbol. So this is so famous that as I said, it has become known as the third silo. And if you're more interested into this, there's a lot of talks currently about team topologies. Manuel Pais and Matthew Skelton wrote a great book about this. So look into this. What really works from an organizational perspective to work good in a DevOps way. And don't get me wrong, I'm not arguing against DevOps engineers. If you call yourself that way, it's all fine. Or if you are working in a DevOps team, it might most probably be fine. I think what you are doing is there is some value in it. I'm just arguing that in most cases, it is work that can either be done by a development team or the operational team. So there's no need to create an artificial new team for that. In most cases, people do build automation engineering, CI/CD related stuff, server stuff. So really creating a new team for that potentially causes new friction is something that you really should think about. This third tip about doing bad DevOps is already in the word DevOps. I just said, this is what we are aiming for, right? We want development and operations closer together. Yeah, right. The thing with the term DevOps is that it is exclusive, right? It pretends that it's a thing that's only for dev people and ops people. But with only dev and ops people, you can't create good software or services, right? You would you miss security people. We miss quality people. We miss business people. We miss designers, user experience, documentation writers. All of those people we miss. And this is simply because the term DevOps is quite bad in itself, as it's exclusive. And now you can create new terms, DevSecOps. Great, but you are still exclusive. You need to have the business people in. Okay, the product people. So it's DevBizSecOps. Okay, and you can make this longer and longer, and it will get even people with a Polish tongue. And I know a bit of a few words in the Polish language. And for me, it's very hard to pronounce them. But even for people with a Polish mother tongue who can really spell out things that are impossible to me, you will sometimes, at some point in time, struggle with saying dev QA or spec UX. It does not work. And at the end, you will still have something that is exclusive. There will most potentially still be people saying, but it misses my role. It misses my profession. So DevOps is a bad term, and we need to learn to think into value chains, like really from the idea to the point where we bring it to the customer. Now the question is, okay, who is in that value chain? Who makes up my value chain? And therefore, I've created a thought experiment. And it's a thought experiment. You shouldn't do it in real life. The thought experiment goes like that. You just think about if I would shut down the productive system, what would happen? And who would come in, who would call me these days, or in non-COVID days, who would come into the door with such a face and yelling, the production system is down. I can't do the quality work. I can't do the customer presentation and what have you. So all these people who have a focus on the productive system, they should be in your team. So simply everyone whose focus is on the product, they should be in your team of the DevOps transformation. There are people in the company that work more administrative-like. Their working focus is the company itself, HR, legal. And then there are people whose focus is a product, like security, quality people, developer, operations team. And all of those people who their working focus on your product, they should be in your team. There's one thing where the thought experiment fails. There is one profession that most probably will not come into your office shouting, yeah, the productive system is down, but they would come in like, yeah, high five, productive system down. And they should still be in your team. It's the security people. Security people would go, yeah, productive system down, you know, no way to attack the system, it couldn't be exposed. But they're important, and they should be still in your value chain. And to put it in a phrase, and I know there is no canonical definition of DevOps, but the most beautiful sentence of describing what DevOps is this one from Ken Muckridge, where he says, a culture where people, regardless of title or background, work together to imagine, develop, deploy, and operate a system. And that makes it clear. It talks about the value stream, it talks about everyone, and it talks about the culture and how we create value out of that. Next tip, how to mess up the DevOps, or how I say, how to create the good DevOps, to get the good bad DevOps, is you pretend doing things already. For example, the most prominent thing is people pretending that they do agile, right? They say, yeah, we do agile, and then you look into that, and then you realize, no, they are doing all the meetings, they're doing all the choreography, but they are not actually doing it. That's like when they told me how to dance. They told me the steps, I did the steps, that was right, but still I wasn't dancing, right? So doing agile and being agile are two different sides. And only doing daily stand-ups because for the sake of it's written in some Scrum book or whatever, does not really make you agile. And this is interesting because I see a lot of teams that started very well in agile. They get trained, they got coaches, but then over time, somehow the agility fades out. And I think this is simply because we are not really stimulating agility again in teams. Teams, you always, teams evolve, teams change, and actually teams are not really changeable. Teams are actually immutable, I would say, because if you have a team and you remove one person from the team, you get a new team with just one person less, because now the communication and the workflows will be completely different. The same as when you add 1 or 2 persons to a team. The way how the people communicate, the way how work flows is different. So you could say that's now a new team. And over time, this simply will, things will get out of the usual day-to-day business. And so you need to stimulate things like agility again and again by, calling frequently the agility coaches in, or having some people, multipliers or whatever, just insisting and making sure that the team is following agile principles over a longer time until it's really in the DNA of the team, so that you can really say you can't get this out of the team. This is just the way they work. So really, when you do agile, really do it and not, be it and not only really do it. The other thing is where people often tell me that, yeah, we are doing continuous delivery already. We have like 5 CI/CD servers only in my team. And then I approach them and I look into that. And sometimes I would say they do not even do continuous integration, which is like the baseline before you go into continuous delivery, right? Continuous integration is not only having a CI server, but it's really the understanding this is the code line that we all need to worry about and make sure it builds. And this is the CI server that builds and tests the stuff. But we all agree if the test or the build fails, then this is our utmost urgent thing that we have to do is taking care that the build and the tests work again, right? And often this is where it lacks, like, okay, it's broken, so I just commit on the broken pipeline because it's already broken, what can go wrong? And so this understanding of CI is often not there. But even if it is there, and then people tell me, okay, now we want to go to continuous delivery mode, then I ask the people, why? Why do you want to do continuous delivery? Yeah, because we want to deploy faster. That's what people do in the cloud. The management told us we need to go faster, we need to deploy faster. And I said, well, but that's no value, right? Deploying faster has no value on its own. I mean, most probably you do invest a lot in automation because that's what you do to deploy faster. But still, yeah, that's a nice side effect. But what is the value of continuous delivery? And I think the value of continuous delivery is to create better software. That easy. And the way continuous delivery describes how to create better software is by getting in more frequent contact with your customers. So getting into fast feedback loops, asking them, is that what we did in the last time frame and this is the last deployment? Is that now solving your problem? Shall we continue going that way, or should we change something? So, and the way how to get faster feedback, this is done by getting smaller chunks of work out faster, so faster deployments. So faster deployment is just a methodology to get into faster feedback, to get better software. And most teams I see, honestly, they stop by deploying faster because now everything is done, right? And it's easy because this is the funny tool, techie kind of thing that you need to go into. But to gather feedback, how to get feedback from customers? Okay, we can do things like analytics and so on, but it's really hard to get feedback then from the customer. But this is something we need to learn. We need to get into these fast feedback loops, get the feedback from the customers fast into our backlogs, and then the new changed functionality fast back to the customer. So optimizing that loop and measuring how long it takes from the request or the idea from the customers via our backlog to the customers, again, the improved solution. This is what we should measure. So the question is, okay, faster deployment is not the goal, it is just a way of getting faster feedback. How to get into faster deployment? Well, it's easy, right? You just press the deploy button faster. Then everyone would insist, no, we cannot do that because, right, you are missing the quality part, right? So the thing that you need to start always first is looking into your quality strategy. What is your test strategy? How is tested? Who tests? When? Why? With which purpose? How is it documented? How, if they find failures, what will happen? all of that. And if you're mature on this, then you can increase the deployment velocity, and then don't stop there. Go into, okay, now we need to increase the gathering the faster feedback. There's another theater that I think that will most probably, if not already in, but could happen to us, that people claim that they do DevOps because they run everything in containers and do Kubernetes and stuff. And I'm not arguing against containers or Kubernetes. I think that this is pretty cool, but it does not substitute collaboration and communication. And my fear here is a little bit that containers get the new lingua franca, or people think of it as the new lingua franca between development and operations, because the developers write their software, package that now into a container, which is self-containing, test it in a Minikube on their PC, kick it over the fence to some operations people that they never met for sure, and expect that they can run this now in the huge Kubernetes cluster that they call production, and think that this is everything that they have to do with and understand of what operations is. But operations is for sure way more than just catching containers out of development and pushing them to some productive Kubernetes cluster. You need to monitor that. You need access and identity management. You need all of that stuff. I don't need to tell you. So operations is way more, and development needs to understand what operations is, and operations needs to understand what development is and what it's all about. Right? Think about again what I had at the beginning with development and operations collaborating more together. And the reason why I tell you this is because if you do agile, apply continuous delivery, DevOps, always do it like with the full of your heart, with the full of the organization. Because if you have ever tried, and I did so, convincing teams to re-spark, retry agile methods, then most probably you will hear, no, we tried this years ago, it didn't work for us. It might work for others, that's all fine, but for us, we tried it out and it did not work. And most probably you were not there at that time, and it's pretty hard to understand why it did not work. But it's extremely hard to convince those people, those teams, to go back and say, yeah, but there is really value in it, and we just might have not done it right, or something happened, but we need to retry this again. And so that's why I said, always, if you do it, really do it and not try it, right? You need to understand, I do this now, and not, okay, let's give it a try, but really expect that it will work, and expect that there are fallbacks. If you apply continuous delivery, things will be more stable, deployments will be faster. Expect that deployments will be slower at the beginning, and things will not be more stable, because you need a learning curve. You need to understand how things work. And this is just a short shout out. If you go into organizations, let's say, and tell them, okay, we do DevOps now, then people have heard a lot of rumors what DevOps is, and everyone projects their expectations into this and says, okay, wow, this will be very cool. And everyone has in their head an own idea of what will happen now and what to expect. And then you get to the real work, and then they will realize that their expectations most probably did not meet what's currently going on does not meet their expectations. And then it comes all these naysayers, all these people that say, yeah, we always knew it from the start. This will not work in this company. And if you face such things, don't spend your time too much on these naysayers. Spend your time more on the people that are undecided, the people that think it's a good idea but not 100% sure. Because the naysayers will stop their negative talks when they realize that it works. But until it works, you need to focus on the people that are undecided. And so always be aware of this hype cycle, and the 75 or 90% that Gartner says of DevOps initiatives that do not meet the expectations. I think there's a lot of expectation management. Make clear statements of this is what we want to achieve by applying DevOps. What is DevOps for us? Make your own DevOps, but what is it? Make it measurable. Make it, okay, how can we count that? What do we expect in a half a year or a year from now? And measure against those measures rather than working against expectations that are not formulated, not written down, and everyone has their own expectations, and then everyone sooner or later says, well, it's nice, but maybe not my expectations. the last tip on how to do bad DevOps is, I consider myself still a developer, and even I do not write that much of code in the last weeks, months, but I still see myself as a developer. Since I'm in the industry, I would call myself a developer. And I sometimes, especially when I come from conferences and I've seen all of great new things, methods and tools, and I think, yeah, that's, if they once would give me a green field, I could really start making things clean and really new. I would for sure put everything into containers and orchestrate that with Kubernetes. And I'm still somehow a Jenkins guy, but there's this Jenkins XX project. And so Jenkins with Kubernetes somehow works. And then package all in Helm charts and GitOps. I heard a few talks about it. I think it's really cool. I would follow that. And then Istio, because service meshes and microservice architecture, I think it's somehow a thing. Monitoring that with Prometheus and Grafana. And I coded some Go lately, and I really liked it. Not sure whether it really fits, but Go is, I think, is pretty cool. A lot of people do it. So, and I could go on with that forever, but at some point you always have to understand, and this might be an inconvenient truth, but it is a truth, that there is no green field, like never, because there's always like legacy systems that expect data in a format that no one uses. So you need to use some library which is almost outdated. It's financial or business constraints, or customers have some expectations or timing constraints. So except that this green field approach, it's more a theory idea. In most cases, it's some shade of brown field that you always find there. And at the end, I think, still, we as IT people, we are still blessed people, right? If you look into society and look what we are doing, many of us, so am I, we made our hobby our profession, and we get quite good money for it, right? And we really love what we are doing. And this is the good side of it. The bad side of this, making the hobby your profession and getting money for it, is that sometimes we are too playful, and we forget to understand that what we are doing only exists to serve a higher purpose or business. But even if you are in a non-profit organization, so it serves something beyond coding, operating, and testing things, right? And I'm not arguing, so I'm not defending. If you have like a Perl script running, on a desktop under your desk, running on Debian, and everything is fine, and it runs, and it still serves the higher purpose, then it's most probably a good idea just leave it there. You don't need to containerize this and rewrite this in Go and what have you. Always think about what is the higher purpose. At the end of what I'm telling here is, again, try to think about the value stream. What is my position in the value stream? What do we all want to achieve from, whether it's the business people, the designers, the quality people, or we as developers or operation people? Try to understand that development and new technology is not the goal of things. It's just a tool that we use, a utility to reach some higher goal. But if you want to change then something, then always make sure that it solves a problem that you have right now, right? A lot of problems, or teams tell me about problems that they expect to have in 1 or 2 years. Where I said, this is great that you think about the future, but maybe we should focus on what is the current problem that we have and fix that. Because in 2 years, many things will have changed in the context and in the environment we are working in. So it's good that we think about how to do that, but we can't really make the decisions for the futures. If we make decisions for futures, always make sure that we make decisions that for tools or for frameworks, so that we can replace them later, so that we have clear interfaces, so that because it will be the case that today we look back into the past and we say, that was a bad decision of mine. I should have used another logging framework. And the same will happen in the future. So in the future, we will have more context, we have more information, more understanding. We will look back and say, wow, that was a bad idea to use this CI/CD service or whatever. So we always need to make clear that there's a clear interface so that we could replace things, right? Do things for replacement. And then if you apply new solutions, always make sure that you are not the only one who understands the stuff, right, really internally and end to end. because yeah, people need to understand how it works, and you should not become the hero of your team, the only one who knows how to, I don't know, recover the database in case it crashes or something like that. And also understand that there's always financial impacts. And I know, especially in large companies, this is often like, I'm the developer, I'm not taking care of any commercialization issues here of the whole thing. This is other people's work. No, it's not. It's actually also your work. Money matters. At the end, it's again the value stream, right? If you make an architectural decision to buy or use this or that library functionality, this will have an end on the price you can offer your solution to your customers. So you need to understand that, and this is not, I don't want you to understand the full mathematicals of price calculations and all that, but just understand that this has an impact. And even though this might look now with this tweet that I have something against hyperscalers, no, hyperscalers are great. Just as an example, if you use the compute storage network from them, this is most convenient what you could do. But for example, if you use some very high level service from them, think about what this potentially could mean for vendor login, what this could potentially mean for the financial impact. The same you could do with buying in third-party libraries and so on. So always try to, again, have the value stream in your perspective. Understand that you are just part of a larger game, and you, together with colleagues, try to reach a higher goal. So the recap slide. As I said, always do your DevOps. There is not the DevOps that you can, that you can copy and then it works for your company as well. Be aware of easy solutions. DevOps engineers, DevOps teams might be okay, but most potentially they just bring in new surfaces of potential friction that you don't need. Think about, can't we just put them in the dev or the ops team? Involve everyone. Think about the value stream, right? You are just part of the value stream. Don't fall for theaters. Really, if you have struggles with applying agile, just try to, how can we stimulate that again? What is really the goal when we want to apply DevOps? What do we want to achieve? How can we measure that? And understand your constraints. Understand that there is not really a green field. There's always, in real world, there's always constraints, some sort of the other that you need to think about. And with that, and I hope I get this right, this is the most nervous point now for me in my whole presentation, Dziękuję.